Headline: Canelo says he's going to unify the 168-pound division. So all those fighters who say they want to have a piece of Canelo need to position themselves to get a piece of Canelo. All right. And just because you get Canelo don't mean that you're going to beat him. So you got to put yourself in the best possible position to beat Canelo. Meaning you need to match yourself up with somebody who has a good name, got a good resume, or a decent resume at least, or is a name, so that you can get the best possible name under your resume, as well as it help you to prepare for somebody of Canelo's stature. You're picking a fight with Canelo. All these things I think are just natural common sense. And I just have the feeling that I don't know how these guys, if these guys really want that in the division that they're in. So the fans seem to be more enthusiastic than the fighters in getting a Canelo fight. That's the honest truth. You know, when I look at the fighters, they seem to be good with their situation. And they don't seem to be pressing for a Canelo fight. They don't seem to be wanting that. What I mean by that is, a lot of them want the fight directly. They want it the easy way. You know, they don't want to have to do all this work to get into position, which means risking losing to another fighter that's as good as they are, or another elite fighter. And that's sad because you're not going to beat Canelo taking shortcuts. Okay. So this is what I think these fighters should do. They should get in position. Canelo's going to be facing Yildirim next, supposedly. That's in February. That means in May, Canelo's going to have another fight. Yildirim's probably seen by most to be an easy fight. We'll see. I don't know. But it should be a 2-minute fight or a stay busy fight for Canelo. So if Yildirim is the guy that Canelo's going to face next, that puts everybody who wants to face Canelo into a position where they could actually make a situation and a case where they could beat Canelo. You know, put themselves in position. You position yourself to get the big prize. Because you don't call the shots, right? Canelo's the cash cow, and it's pound for pound number one. Now, I listen to all these black channels. I listen to AK Sports TV, and I have respect for them. I listen to Dante's Boxing Nation. I listen to, several other black channels. And all of them have this narrative. Canelo don't face people, and he ducks this one, and he can't be pound for pound number one, and it got to be Crawford. All right, let me ask you. I'm gonna ask some realistic questions before I go into pound for pound number one or whatever. Our first question is, who was Terrence Crawford faced to be pound for pound number one? Like, really? What great fighter? What number one fighter in any division did Terrence Crawford face to become pound for pound number one? And then we talk about pound for pound number one this year. What fight did Terrence Crawford have that puts him in the position to say, oh, yes, he definitely is pound for pound number one this year? Did he face a fighter that was ranked in the top 10 at least? Did he face a top 10 fighter this year? A welterweight that was in the top 10, at least the top 10. Did he do that? So how are you telling me that Terrence Crawford is pound for pound number one this year, when Canelo, he faced the lineal champion at 168? So all of a sudden, the level of opposition doesn't mean anything. It's just the eye test. I mean, come on now. Then you're going to bring up, oh, well, he had clenbuterol in the system. And all the charges that were placed upon him have been reversed. So what are you really saying? So that's that. Now, these people say, oh, he'll never face David Benavidez. Oh, he never faced Jamal Charlo. Oh, he never faced Demetrius Andrade. Until he faces those guys, we give him pound for pound number one. But because he's ducking and dodging these guys, we cannot give him pound. But it don't work like that. But nonetheless, this video is about seeing that people feel that these guys are serious threats to Canelo. I do see Demetrius Andrade as the most threatening. I think Jesse Vargas said the same. Carissa Shields, a number of people. I think he's the guy that gives Canelo the biggest test in the division. But nonetheless, Demetrius Andrade. Boo Boo's talking about facing Billy Joe Saunders in February or somewhere thereabouts. That's a good idea. And Billy Joe Saunders should take up that offer. Now, Billy Joe Saunders is looking at the fight with Canelo probably in May. And he's saying, oh, I want to save my opportunity for May. If Billy Joe Saunders doesn't face Demetrius Andrade, and he's just trying to save and hodge and hedge to get his shot at Canelo, he's going to lose. I don't care how much Ben Davidson thinks he knows what Canelo can do. He's going to lose. Demetrius Andrade, Billy Joe Saunders and Demetrius Andrade need each other to push their skills to the next level. You can have all the game plan in the world, and you ain't going to go to no damn game plan with Canelo, because Canelo ain't a guy you just going to hit flush like that. Them two need to fight each other. What happens is, one, it validates Billy Joe Saunders if he beats Demetrius Andrade. Now he got a serious name, a reputable name on his resume. There's not no Andy Lee. There's not no Chris Eubank Jr. Okay? There's not no David Lemieux. If he beats Demetrius Andrade, that's a serious name. That's a guy that's very much ducked as well in the division. That would be a huge, huge win for Billy Joe Saunders. It will legitimize him as 166 pounder, and it will allow Billy Joe Saunders to be in a position to really face Canelo and make us all believe he could beat him. Because if you beat Boo Boo, you beat somebody. Now, if Demetrius Andrade beats Billy Joe Saunders, that puts Demetrius Andrade directly in the path line of Canelo, because Canelo's saying he want to unify the division. That's what he said. So he's going to have to go see Demetrius Andrade. He's going to have to go see Boo Boo. Right. Jamal Charlo. Y'all can hee-haw, y'all can haw-hee, y'all can ha-ha, haw-haw, until Jamal Charlo puts himself in a position to get at Canelo. It's all hee-haw, haw-haw. Because Canelo said he wants to unify the titles, which means if Jamal Charlo's really serious about that, he's going to jump up to 168 and face Caleb Plant. That's the guy he's got to go at. Caleb Plant. The IBF champion. If he's serious about it, and he's not bullshitting us, okay, because if you fight David Benavidez, what does that mean? That doesn't mean nothing. Because Canelo already has that belt. You just line yourself up to be a mandatory. Canelo's talking about being unified, and then he might duck your ass. He might say, I don't want to face him, and that's it. Okay? So, the best possible way for Jamal Charlo to put himself in position is to face Caleb Plant next and beat his ass and become the IBF champion. That's directly in the line to get a Canelo fight. It'll do good for Caleb Plant, and it'll do good for Jamal Charlo. Somebody old got to go. But at the end of the day, if Caleb Plant beats Jamal Charlo, Caleb Plant has solidified his spot, and he's got more than enough experience to be able to beat Canelo. If Jamal Charlo beats Caleb Plant, Jamal Charlo would not only validate his position at 168, but he would also build up enough experience to be able to deal with Canelo. That's why these guys need to face each other. Because there's a tremendously big gap between the experience that Canelo has at championship level with elite fighters and these guys, and the only way is to play catch up. They're not going to beat him. I don't care what nobody says. David Benavidez is not beating Canelo. None of these guys is beating Canelo until they test themselves in a real ring situation with an elite fighter. Canelo's been facing elite fighters time after time after time. We're talking about top tier elite fighters, the top in the divisions. These guys have not been doing that. They need that experience. They don't know what it is. When certain situations confront them, they will not be able to handle it. And it's more to this thing than just boxing. When you're the A side, you could demand of your opponent various things. And all of that procedure, they're not fully acquainted with. None of them. Canelo's been down that road a number of times. So they need to put themselves in position. Now, what happens to David Benavidez? David Benavidez is kind of the guy that hangs out in the cold. Unless David Benavidez decides he's going to compete with Jamal Charlo to get that Caleb Plant fight. So David Benavidez should be pushing to face Caleb Plant because them two, Charlo and Benavidez, they're going to have to compete to try to get a championship fight so they can put themselves in position. So David Benavidez, if I was him, I'd be trying to vie for the IBF title. See, because what you want to do is put yourself directly in Canelo's pathway. Because he's saying, I want to unify the titles. So he can't unify the titles if he doesn't go through the fighters. Caleb Plant's directly in his line right now, and Billy Joe Saunders right now directly in his line. But Canelo decided he's going to take on a stay busy fight. In that interim, these guys can justify position. They have to decide, and they have to decide quickly if they're going to jump into position to get in front of Canelo. But to do that, they need to go through each other, which to me makes a lot of sense. Because they don't have much of a chance if they don't go through each other. They have to go through. You gotta go. You can't cheat. I just watched Wonder Woman 84, and little Diana, she cheated on the course. She tried to take a shortcut. You can't cheat. You can't cheat to get. It's a process. You're either gonna take your time and go through the process, like Gervonta Tank Davis is doing, or you're gonna get beat. Because none of them at this point in time, I don't care what anybody says, none of these guys as is and stands as they are is going to beat Canelo. Demetrius Andrews is down at 160. He has not tested 168. Jamal Charlo's at 160. He hasn't tested 168. Canelo's tested 175. He's been up there. Okay? That's the first experience. The second experience is none of those guys that we just mentioned has faced a pound-for-pound fighter. None of them. And Canelo's had that experience repeatedly. He has faced, if I'm not mistaken, 3 pound-for-pound fighters in the last 5 years. Okay? So, they don't have that experience either. Okay? And we're talking about the top of the top of the top. All right? These guys don't have that. The other thing is, these guys, I don't know how much they're improving in their game, but Canelo is definitely improving with more and more wrinkles in his game. These guys are getting more experience facing different styles of fighters, but Canelo's experienced every style of fighter already. So he's now just building on wrinkles. So he's way ahead of the curve with these guys. So you're not just going to jump in there against Canelo. Oh, yeah, we're going to push him back. Benavidez, you're going to push him. First of all, Benavidez, your uppercuts are not going to land on Canelo. All those little uppercuts, you gotta get your game together, brother. Because them uppercuts are not gonna land on Canelo. All right, Callum Smith tried to throw uppercuts. You're gonna get so fucking tentative when he just be beating your ass up. You've done already got weight problems. You should be probably at 175, but he gonna beat the shit out of your ass, and you're gonna be tentative just like Callum Smith. I watched that David Benavidez fight. He only throws flurries when he's on top of a fighter. He's not gonna throw those flurries just like that. And when you can't hit shit, that's when you're going to get your ass going to get tentative. Especially when it's not even being blocked. You're literally throwing an air and you're missing an air. That's the worst thing because your punches are just going. There's no resistance to your punches. So you can get him back into position. He has no idea. These motherfuckers have no idea what they're in for when they face Canelo. I can tell that. They're very clueless. They need to build their game. Okay? But the best way to build their game is to face each other. Shout out to Boxing Monster. Charlo turned down the Canelo fight last year. Oscar offered Charlo $7 million and Charlo passed. Boo Boo is overrated. Name one tough fighter Boo Boo has fought. He fought a couple of tough fighters, Matarosian, the what's the name of the kid that faced Danny Jacobs? He fought a couple of them. I wouldn't say they top tier, but he has fought some top 10 fighters. But that's not the point. Boo Boo's got the skills and ability. And again, it really doesn't matter because, like I said before, he has to face Billy Joe Saunders. Boo Boo need to go through Saunders to get that experience, that championship caliber experience. He has not faced a championship. He has not faced a championship fighter, a fighter who has been a world champion. He's never. He's faced guys, I think, for championships, but he's never faced a championship fighter. Hold on a second. But these guys need to put themselves in position, and they need to grow up. You can't be looking for the draw, for the lottery. That bullshit is, and Demetrius Sanders beginning to realize that as his days go by. And he older than Canelo, right? He's an older guy than Canelo. And Demetrius Sanders, if he can get that Billy Joe Saunders fight, that would definitely help him. And Saunders actually got more championship experience than Andre, and he's a bigger guy than Andre. So that would be a very interesting fight. Two slick southpaws going at it. And even though I favor Andre to beat Saunders, don't be surprised if Saunders beat Andre. You know what I mean? Depends on what Saunders shows up. That's the problem. Saunders is not very dependable. Andre is extremely dependable. He goes in the fight, he gonna dominate, right? He has dominated every single opponent, showing that he's levels above his competition. Okay, anyway. So, having talked about Billy Joe Saunders and Demetrius Andre, them guys need to face each other. Caleb Plant needs some experience, so Caleb Plant, enough with the tune-up fights. Caleb Plant need to either face Benavidez or he need to face Jamal Charlo. But he need to step up to the plate and face somebody, because he's in line to face Canelo, and he can talk all this bullshit about he fear no man and stuff. When Canelo get in the ring with him and he start to deal with Canelo, he gonna learn that there's just levels to this fucking sport of boxing, and you can't hold the IBF belt at ransom. Canelo's gonna be looking to come get it, so he's got to get in position for that. So what I would say about all these boxers I just spoke about, they need to face each other to get in position. You got to put yourself in position. If you don't put yourself in position, you're just flapping, you're just bumping your damn gums, hoping for the best. All right? Put yourself in position to get those fights with Canelo. And he's the A-side, so you got to watch out for A-side plays. Because if he can find any wrinkle in your game to get you at a disadvantage, he's going to play it. That's the way how Floyd did it, and that's the way how he would do it to you. So they have no idea what Canelo is. They have no idea. They think this guy's overhyped, and they think he's afraid of them. That's the biggest mistake that Pacquiao did. And Jamal Charlo, at least when I listen to him, he has a lot more respect for Canelo, but still, at the same time, I'm going to cut the lights right now. But at the same time, Jamal Charlo, he talking about knocking out Canelo. That's bullshit. You're not going to knock out shit. You're not going to knock out Canelo. You can't even hit Canelo. The fuck you talking about? You were struggling with Matt Korobov. You were struggling with Brian Adams. You didn't knock them out. Okay? So how on earth you going to knock out Canelo? This is the thing that these fighters, you can hope and pray that you knock him out, but that ain't happening. That's just not realistic. The guy's a defensive fighter. You're not going to knock him out. Okay? So it's like, when I listen to these things, anyway, but the point is that people rock with Jamal Charlo. I'm cool with Jamal Charlo as well. I like him as a boxer. He's doing very well. I love what he did with Derevyanchenko. But Derevyanchenko ain't Canelo. Derevyanchenko is a different fighter to Canelo. And if you think you're going to go in there, I'm telling you, Danny Jacobs is a lot more skilled fighter than Jamal Charlo. After Danny Jacobs lost to Canelo, everybody talking about, oh, Danny Jacobs, he's done for and he ain't no good and stuff. I listen to the bullshit, but at the end of the day, Danny Jacobs is a much more skilled fighter than Jamal Charlo, okay? Jamal Charlo is much more solid. He's a much stronger fighter. He's sharper, but he is not as skilled as Danny Jacobs. And very simple, just very simply, Danny Jacobs can go southpaw on you in the middle of a fight and roll punches both ways. Jamal Charlo can't do that. I'm just showing you there's levels to the skills. Okay, Danny Jacobs can do a lot of different things. He can fight on the outside. He can fight on the inside. Guess what? Jamal Charlo is not really an inside fighter. He's exclusively an outboxer. Okay, Danny Jacobs can fight at any range. I'm just showing you how he's more skilled than Jamal Charlo. People say Danny Jacobs is more athletic. No, he is more skilled, period. He has tools that he uses which show that he's more skilled than a Jamal Charlo because he can do more things in the ring than Jamal Charlo can do. May not do it at the level that Jamal Charlo does it. Jamal Charlo may be more sharper. He might be more exact, but he is more skilled than Jamal Charlo. That's just a fact. And then coming down to, and what I saw, what really impressed me was when Canelo did what he did to Danny Jacobs. That told me everything I needed to know. Danny Jacobs couldn't touch him. He couldn't find him, you know. And then as the fight went along, the fight kind of started to even out. Danny Jacobs said Canelo's rhythm. Man, I tried to find this guy's rhythm. He couldn't find his rhythm. Okay, and the fight got a lot more competitive in rounds 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But having said all of that, Canelo still easily won that fight. Okay, and I'm saying this to say this is not the first time Canelo's fought a big 160 pounder. Danny Jacobs was a big 160 pounder. Canelo fought him, right? Sergey Kovalev is a big 175 pounder. Canelo fought him. A lot of people say, well, where did Canelo get his power from to knock out Sergey Kovalev? Y'all need to know some boxing. This has nothing to do with power. This has to do with Sergey Kovalev tiring out in rounds 8 to 10. He always do that. He always tire out from 8 rounds, 8 to 10. He put a surge in round 10, blow out his energy, and then Canelo's trailer said, go finish him off because he's done. Okay? This is something that Floyd know. He know when a fighter's tiring out. It has nothing to do. Sergey Kovalev had nothing to do with Canelo's punching power. Even Callum Smith admitted, Canelo don't punch that hard. He's solid. He's good, but he's not an outstanding puncher. But he's still doing damage, right? He busted up the kid's eye. You know, he damaged his shoulder. He's doing damage. Why is he doing damage? Because he's very selective and accurate in what he's doing, how he's placing his punches, how sharp he is. When you're a sharp fighter, and see, this is some of the things that these guys just don't understand. When you're a sharp fighter, when you fight sharp, Floyd's the same thing. He throws very sharp punches. Floyd has some pop, right? People say Floyd don't have no pop. He has some pop, okay? In fact, I remember Shane Mosley saying that Floyd and Canelo, to him, they punch the same. I remember Oscar De La Hoya saying Floyd and Pacquiao, they punch about the same. It's not that they punch about the same. It's just the action at which Floyd and Canelo use is the same kind of action. Canelo throws the shots the same way Floyd throws shots. You see? So there's a lot of similarities between Canelo and Floyd. And I don't understand why it is that certain members of the LGBT just go in on Canelo. It just makes no sense to me because here you are, guys, you know, these people are kissing Floyd's ass and talking all kinds of good things about him. But when it comes to Canelo, who is absolutely just a bigger version of Floyd, okay, he might be not as mobile as Floyd. He doesn't try to be as mobile as Floyd, but he's absolutely in the spirit of Joe Louis, in the spirit of Lennox Lewis, you know, these economical guys with economical footwork and placement and precise footwork and precise placement of punches and accuracy. Canelo's in the footstep of Floyd. He's not in the footstep of Sugar Ray Leonard. He's not in the footstep of Sugar Ray Robinson. He doesn't walk in those footsteps. He walks in the footsteps of Floyd. Look at how economical he is, how he paces himself, how he slows down a fight, how he controls distance. This is a Floyd-like proceeding. Okay? It is clear to me as day. It just how happens he's Mexican. But styles make fights, and this dude's style is as complicated and as complex as Floyd's style was. And I don't understand, for the life of me, I don't understand why these guys think, okay, Jamal Charlo will beat him, and this guy would be, and he's ducking this guy. Okay, so there's some whack ass things that happen. I'm gonna be real. Okay, the WBC with this franchise belt do some whack stuff. Okay, and yes, Canelo dictates who he wants to face, but still at the same time, I was not cool with they forming this new belt. If Canelo didn't want to face Jamal Charlo, all he had to do was vacate. Okay, because effectively that's what you did anyway. So I never got that. If you didn't want to face Jamal Charlo, just vacate. Okay, you would have ducked him because that's basically what you do. Unless you're saying, man, this is one of the ways these guys duck, right? They say, man, I'm gonna go up 2, 3 divisions and face this monster up there, or what's perceived as a monster. But you got little stipulations in your contract for the monster, so the monster can't fully be the monster that he's supposed to be, right? Or you fight close. The guy just had a fight, and you make him fight again, as in the case of Kovalev. Now, everybody knows, including myself, that Kovalev was going to be an easier fight than if Canelo was to face Jamal Charlo or to face Demetrius Andrade. However, why we couldn't call it a duck, and still to this day, I will not call it a duck officially, I have to do it with quotation marks, is because Sergey Kovalev was a world champion at the time. He had maintained his championship, even though it was a dicey situation against whatever the kid's name is. I forgot what his name is right now, right? He almost got stopped, right, in the fight before. But in addition to that, Sergey Kovalev at the time was top 5, top 4 of his division, right? So, and he was a title holder. He was a world champion. He had maintained his world champion. He got it back again, and he maintained it, right? So you have to give him his props and then his resume and everything. So you can't say, "Oh well, Sergey Kovalev, man, that was a duck because he went and faced Sergey Kovalev was going to be a shit fight," which is what I was saying all along until I saw the fight. I didn't really care to see Canelo versus Sergey Kovalev. To be honest with you, I wanted to see him versus Charlo or versus Andre. But at the end of the day, he went up 2 divisions and he beat Sergey Kovalev. Some people argue that Sergey Kovalev outboxed him. I didn't really see that. It was kind of close. It was a close neck and neck thing. But obviously, I was watching that Canelo gain momentum more and more, and Kovalev be more frustrated. And even though he was keeping him, trying to keep him at the end of his stick, he was still getting caught with certain shots. And you could see that Kovalev, the pressure was getting to Kovalev. So, and then when he really tried to go at Canelo in round 10, I realized the gig is up. The next Canelo gonna take him out in the next round, and he did. But the point is that at the end of the day, this is a guy that fights at 175, a big 175 pounder at that. And Canelo was able, through, of course, cleverness and smartness, composure, which Kovalev didn't have the composure that Canelo had, and skill, and you could see Kovalev wasn't as comfortable as Canelo was in the ring, that he was able to put away Kovalev. He was able to stop him. All right? So, all of this to say, Canelo has that experience, he has that composure, and that's the thing that you can't pay for. All of these young, exciting fighters, whether it's Andre, whether it's Charlo, you know, whether it's even Saunders, they're not as composed as Canelo is. Canelo go into the ring, he real cool. It's like not a big deal. This is like another day at the office, right? Those guys don't go in there with that kind of composure. They're always excitable. They're always trying to light up a guy. He's coming in. You can't be like that. You have to be mentally. See, that's what I'm saying. There's a difference between Canelo and these guys. Canelo's a seasoned veteran that has everything. He's got the game, and he's learning still, but he's got everything. He's really filled out into a complete fighter, and he knows what to do in different situations. Whereas these guys, they still learning on the job. They still fresh, even though they're veterans. There's a lot of things they don't know, and that's why these guys need to go through the crucible or the fire. And this is an opportunity. If Canelo's gonna fight Yildirim or whatever the hell his name is in Mexico, right? He's gonna go off and do his Mexican fight. Then it's up to these guys to sharpen one another by facing one another. It's an honor to do so, and those fights would be pretty big fights. If Charlo backs out and he's like, "I'm gonna stay at 160," then he's not serious. Okay, he cool and he content with his situation. But for the fighters who are serious, they gonna go after it. Okay, because Caleb Plant is sitting down there and he needs to be tested. So if Benavidez faces Caleb Plant, that would be a good fight. That would be a very good fight for them to have. And it's about that time that they do face each other. Because Benavidez is never going to get that 168-pound belt back unless he stayed forever at 168 pounds. And he about to go up to 175. Okay? He about to go up to one. So if I was Caleb Plant, now's the time to have that Benavidez fight. They need to face each other. And let's see what happens. And whoever's the better man that comes out of that fight, they face Canelo. And when it comes to Demetrius Andre, Demetrius Andre should step up and face Billy Joe Saunders, which looks like that's what he's going to do. And the best man that comes out of that fight should face Canelo. And that would make Canelo have to face those good guys. Now everybody gonna say, well, Canelo didn't face Charlo. Well, did Charlo want to move up to 168? If he don't want to move up to 168, what does it matter? Plus, is Triple G gonna move up to 168? Because Canelo shouldn't have to come down and wait to face Triple G. Triple G had to move up to 168. If you want to have a Canelo fight, move up to 168. That's what Canelo should do. And beat the brakes off of Triple G and then move on to somebody else. Okay. At the end of the day, Jamal Charlo, if he wants that Canelo fight at all in his career, he's got to step up and wait and put himself in position. Because the Canelo train looked like, once Canelo unified, it looked like he might move up to 175. That's what it looks like to me. So if you squander the opportunity to face the dude, then it means you didn't want to face the dude. You cool with staying at 160, chilling out at 160, Jamal Charlo. You know what I mean? But if he's serious about it, he'll go after it. But to do that, he got to go through Caleb Plant, who's a 160 pounder. Slick 160. That is a tough test, but whoever comes out of that, that's what you got to do. You got to really severely. It's like Mayweather versus Diego Corrales, right? He had to go through that crucible. Then he faced Jesus Chavez, and then that prepared him for Jose Luis Castillo. But if you're not going through crucibles, if you're not having the tough fights, if he didn't have the Jesus Chavez fight, that Jose Luis Castillo first fight, he might have lost. But he went through the Jesus Chavez fight, so he had been through the fire, and that prepared him for Jose Luis Castillo. You got to have fights to prepare you for big fights. And a Canelo fight's a big fight. So the only way you're going to be ready for a fight like that, of that magnitude, with all the things that happen in the background, is to have a big fight before you have the big fight. To face a world champion, while you are world champion. And that's the thing that these guys, I don't know if they understand and grasp, because there's a lot more to boxing than just boxing. Than actually go in there in that ring. There's a lot of preparation, a lot of things, a lot of I's and T's to dot and cross before you could even step into that square circle. And Canelo's way ahead of the whole entire curve, the whole entire of his contemporaries. He's ahead of all of them in every single way. They handicapped going into that. So I'm surprised that a lot of people don't want to give Canelo his pound for pound number one status props. They still talking about Terrence Crawford. I just don't get it. I mean, I even hear Mayweather talking about Terrence Crawford. I'm like, what did Terrence Crawford do, though? What did he do? What has he done to be pound for pound number one right now? Yeah, he faced some okay fighters, but he ain't faced no top elite fighters like the elite fighters that are at welterweight right now. He has faced no guys that we could say, oh, these guys are going to be future Hall of Famers. He has faced no, I remember Canelo's faced these dudes, okay? He's faced guys that are going to be future Hall of Famers. He's faced guys that are all-time greats. He's faced guys that are legendary fighters with some serious legendary names on their resume. Terrence Crawford ain't got none of that shit. So how are we to know that the eye test that we saw is really legit? How are we to know that? At welterweight, his last opponent was not even a top 10 welterweight. Wasn't. Kell Brooks, great fighter, excellent fighter, was fighting at most of the super welterweight, but he wasn't top 10 there either. Since he been beaten by Spence, he not been in the boxing game long enough. And then when he did come in the boxing game, he had 2 or 3 fights at super welterweight. So he's not ranked at welterweight. You know what I mean? And meanwhile, the welterweights in that division, the top guys are facing each other. So I don't know how, Terrence Crawford, people say he pound for pound number one. I don't understand. I can't say that the eye test is legit until I see the eye test tested. Which means you got to face either the top 10 or somebody in the top 5 or the top 6 guys. At least that. If you can get Eric Spencer, you can get Pacquiao. Great, but at the end of the day, if you can't get them guys, you need to face somebody else who's top tier. And I think Sean Porter's going to be the dude, and that's going to be the true test for Terrence Crawford to see where his pound for pound status really is. You know, so I can't put Terrence Crawford above Canelo. Never going to do that. It don't make no sense. And they say, well, the drug, I think, no, man, the drug thing, that drug test stuff has been reversed. So that's not even an issue right now. You gotta talk facts from issues. You know what I mean? And Terrence Crawford's not even the number one welterweight. He's not even the number one welterweight. Canelo is the number one super middleweight right now, without question. I mean, these are all facts that you cannot refute. So you can't put Terrence Crawford ahead of Canelo. I mean, you might like the dude and everything, and you like his fighting style, and you like how he got rid of Kell Brook, which was also really cool. But at the end of the day, you can't put him ahead of Canelo just based on an eye test that has not been tested. So I can't respect somebody opinion that say Terrence Crawford pound for pound ahead of Canelo. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. I mean, Terrence Crawford hell of a fighter, but until he's been tested, he has not been tested. What do I mean by that? I mean, he has not faced a top 10 welterweight at all. But you can't say that about Canelo. The first guy he's faced this year is the lineal 178. I mean, he went to the top. He went to the top, and he took the guy who was rated the top guy in the division, and he took him out, and he took his crown from him. So I mean, you can't. I mean, it's just come on, man. There's levels to this game. There's levels to this game. You know, that's why I can't respect somebody who's saying, "Oh, Canelo was this and Canelo that," and they criticizing Canelo. You can't do that. You can't do that. That's disrespectful, man. That's like trying to disrespect Floyd. Oh, he didn't face this guy, but he faced the top guy though. So you can't say nothing now. You have to shut up. Because people were saying, oh, well, Canelo, he was facing old guys. Okay, so he faced a young guy. Or that young guy wasn't as good, but he was ranked as the best guy at 168. Well, 168 isn't so deep. Yeah, but it got Billy Joe Saunders. It's got so what you saying? David Benavidez is nobody? What are you really saying? If you're saying it's not deep, you got Caleb Plant, very skilled fighter. You got David Benavidez. You got Billy Joe Saunders, and then you got Callum Smith. I mean, that's as deep as it gets. And plus, you got other fighters underneath that. You cannot be saying these things because it don't make no damn sense. And I see all the haters out there, and they try to, oh well, they try to push the drug use thing because Canelo got found out with Vada. Vada found some clenbuterol in the system, trace amounts, but nonetheless they found it. And everybody making these theories up about Canelo. I mean, he would look suspect if he wasn't being Vada tested all year fucking round. Sure, but he's tested all year round. So what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? They can show up at any time at his place and he can get tested. So I don't understand. What are you guys talking about? The man was the face of the clean boxing program when they had USADA. I don't believe Canelo cheated at all. I don't believe it at all. Not for 1 second. And that's why he cleared. He was cleared of the stuff. So I don't get it, man. But the hate will be there. The hate will be there, and it's ironic that people from the LDBC who I would have thought would have rocked with Canelo and be like, yeah, man, this dude, he got skills, he's slick, he got ability. We don't know if he's gonna beat every fighter. We want to see him against Demetrius Sanders. We want to see him against Jamal Charlo. We want to see him against David Benavidez. I heard some of these guys from there, and that's how I know there's a hating ass ninjas, man. Talking about how Triple G beat Canelo in the first fight. And these motherfuckers know they're boxing. How the hell Triple G beat Canelo in the first fight? Triple G couldn't hit nothing. He couldn't even hit his grandma. But he beat Canelo in the first fight. How the hell that happened? Like really, seriously. Sometimes, man. Sometimes some people let me down. And I exposed Dante's Boxing Nation. I even exposed Ego, Boxing Ego on this. And I'm willing to expose every single channel on this because this is about boxing. This is not about whose race or whose nationality. That's bullshit. When you see a really good fighter who has really good ability and skills, you gotta acknowledge them. If Canelo gets his ass beat tomorrow, so be it. But at least acknowledge his skills and abilities. Acknowledge the skills, the guy's skills and abilities, which they don't want to do. They begrudgingly want to do it. And I say to them, y'all full of shit. Because the same things we talking about right now with Canelo is the same things we was talking about with Floyd. So if these guys want to face Canelo and get an opportunity to beat his ass, they need to put themselves in position. And it will work well for them. So looking forward to Demetrius Andre facing, and these are good fights. These are fights that people gonna pay to see. Even Demetrius Andre versus Billy Joe Saunders. That's a pay-per-view fight if they want. It's a good fight. It's really a good fight. It's a very skilled fight. I would love to see it. You know, Caleb Plant versus David Benavidez. That's a very highly anticipated fight. People will pay to see. You know, so I mean, that's what I got to say about that. You know, but this foolishness about Canelo, he gonna have problems with slick fighters, and I don't believe that shit. I don't believe it. He beat Arislandi Lara. He beat Austin Trout. They all slick fighters. He didn't beat Floyd, but Floyd is a different fighter, and he was fighting a different kind of fight. All right, which Canelo learned a lot from. And then you had what's his name, Danny Jacobs. All them guys are slick fighters. They all got skills. They all got skills. And so, you know, love to see him against Demetrius Andre. Demetrius Andre is more slick than Jamal Charlo. Jamal Charlo is not as slick, but I love to see that. If people want to see Jamal Charlo, no problem. But I think the only way people are going to shut the hell up is if he faces those guys. But of course, he can only face who presents themselves and puts themselves in position. That's why I recommend, Jamal Charlo and all these guys. If you really want to get that fight, put yourself in position to do it. I heard that Jamal Charlo was offered by Golden Boy. I don't really buy it 100%. Oscar and they tell a lot of dishonest stuff. Now with Canelo being his own boss, I think we're going to see a lot more better things, and we'll see where direction Canelo really wants to go in. Um, and looking forward to those fights, man. But I'm not a Canelo fan like that, really. I like the truth. I just believe these fighters need to get themselves in position to be able to capitalize so they finally can say, oh man, I faced Canelo. All right. And whether you beat them or not, at least you put yourself in the position to do so. That's what guys need to do. But if you're not putting yourself in a position to do so and you're just content with your situation, then so be it. Continue to develop yourself and work in your game. And there are more new boxers coming into boxing. I have a lot of promise. So we'll see. Right now, there's that Puerto Rican kid. We'll see how he does. He's coming up. Belengo, whatever his name is. He's on the rise, so we'll see how he does. And that's what I'm talking about with boxing. I'm gonna catch you guys later on What You Need. Peace.